Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Building Your Business is Sequential, with your MAPS coach, Chris Suarez. Please note this webinar is being recorded and you will automatically receive the webinar recording. If you have any questions for your coach, please type them into the questions box located in your webinar taskbar. Following the webinar, if you have any questions about today's call or coaching program, please email us at fasttrack@kw.com. That's fasttrack@kw.com. All right, that's all for me, Chris. Go ahead and take it away.
Awesome. So I appreciate the opportunity to be with everyone. It seems like we just finished family reunion, and we are hitting the ground running. So I've been asked to share with the group today on a topic that I actually talked about a bit at family reunion. So some of you I got to spend some time with, but it's this conversation that building a business is sequential. Building a business is sequential. The reason why it's such an important topic is oftentimes after an event like we just have attended, we've seen agents that are doing hundreds and hundreds of transactions or thousands of transactions, and they have teams of 5, 10, 20, hundreds of people, and it's easy to get slightly overwhelmed. And we look at people and we say, gosh, that's what I want to get there, that's where I'm going. And unfortunately, we forget that building our business is sequential. So today, we're going to talk about what that means and how we begin. The first step is preparing our mind. Oftentimes, if you're like me, we just want to jump in, right? We want to jump in and start getting to work and doing stuff. And before we do that, Gary was really clear in the MREA book, and we're going to reference that book. I know that's not shocking to most of you, but we're going to reference that book quite a bit today, because Gary said in the first 129 pages of MREA that the first model really is the mindset model. And if I could sum up those 129 pages, it would be with this quote. And Gary said that there are just three things and that are going to stand between us and success in the business. And it's found on page 22 of MREA, and I share this with as many people as I possibly can every time I have the opportunity to speak. And it's because there are only three things that are going to stand between us and success in this business, and it's our approach, which means what we do and how we're doing it. It's our ability, which means our skill, and it's our willingness. And I promise, approach and ability can change overnight. Willingness, nobody can change but ourselves. Nobody can change but ourselves. And so as we plug into this concept and idea that building our business is sequential, it starts with from our mind saying, yes, I'm willing to change my approach. I'm willing to adjust my ability and improve my ability. And I'm willing to do the work that it's going to take sequentially. Now, Gary has given us the six personal perspectives, and I believe that today, if we can really just talk about two of those, we will be better off than when we started today. And the first one is committing to the 80-20 principle. So we talk about this a lot. We share this a lot. Our company does an incredible job getting us to focus or intending for us to focus on our 20%. On our 20%. And this mindset or this perspective around building a business sequentially, if we don't master this perspective and the next perspective we're about to talk about, if we don't master these two, there's no way that we're going to be willing to change our approach and our ability long enough to actually build a sequential business. So the first one is understanding that 20% of what we do each and every day will give us 80% of what we make every single year. Right? So you dial it back and you go back to what your income was in 2018, and I guarantee you 80% of that came from 20% of what you did. And the story that I often tell is the day that I really internalized what this really means. And I had hit 2 years in a row where our business net $1 million, and we're going to talk about how and why. And ultimately, this whole hour is really about sequentially how do we get there and what do we need to do now moving forward once we realize that this is a sequential business. But it was the day that I realized that, gosh, for 2 years in a row, I've net $1 million after paying all expenses. It's sitting in the bank account. I wasn't doing anything with that money. I know there's some people that are cringing at that thought right now, but I didn't really care about it. There wasn't something that was driving me to want to do it for the third year. And so I took a step back and said, I'm working more than I want to work. And 80% of what I made the year before was 800 grand, right? Right about $800,000. And I said, gosh, I'd be good with that. I'd be good with 80% of what I made last year. And I looked at what 20% of what my day looked like. And I was doing about 10-hour days, right? I was working about 10-hour days. And I thought, well, man, 2 hours a day made me 800,000. I would gladly trade 200 grand for 8 hours. That is a trade I will do all day, every day for the rest of my life. So I internalized the fact that I was not living this principle. This was not truly my perspective, because if it was, I would have sequentially built my business slightly differently. I would have done different things. My life and time and schedule would have looked different. I had the opportunity to speak with two other agents in two different parts of the country this morning, just this morning. And it's interesting. The one thing that was a theme with both of them is we wanted more time, right? They wanted more time. Now, they didn't necessarily want to give up any income. And that's fair. That's fair, right? Or maybe they just didn't have the income to give up, but they absolutely wanted more time for other things. Now, here's the secret of this perspective sequentially. Sequentially, the first step was being willing to give up 20% of my income for 80% of my time back. Now, what you'll learn very, very quickly as you plug into this principle and make it your perspective is that 80% of my time, man, other people could do what I was doing in those 8 hours way better than me. And by doing it better, it actually drove income, and I didn't give any income up. So I share that story because on our sequential path to building a big business, we need this to be our mindset. We need this to be our perspective. We need to put this up on our wall and look at it and look at it. And each day say, hey, am I living this? Did I show up this way today? Did I really focus on the 20%? And we're 80% of the results there. Now, the second perspective that changed my world is moving from E to P, right? Moving from being entrepreneurial to being purposeful. The thing that will stand between us and success, let's assume all of us have a willingness. I mean, we showed up to this, right? And we're spending an hour of our day learning about what a sequential business looks like. So I would venture to guess all of us are willing, right? So then it's approachability. Approachability is what will break through that black line in front of your screen called the ceiling of achievement. Now, the problem with breaking through is most of us start in this business as entrepreneurs. You did, I did, we all did, right? We're entrepreneurs. If we weren't, we wouldn't be here. We would still have the jobs that we left to get into real estate. But we all had drive, we all had enthusiasm, we all had intuition, we all had natural behavior, we all had spontaneity. Those 5 qualities are critically important to launch a business called real estate. And they live in the entrepreneurial style or spirit of all of us. All 5 of them will eventually lead us to some other words that we don't like to talk about. Disappointment, resignation. The root word of resignation is what? Resign. That's why there is more burnout in our industry probably than any other. Right? Gary Keller says we will probably lose 300 to 400,000 realtors in our country in the next 12 to 18 months. Some of us are thrilled about that. Others are not, because it's us. Right? We resign. We say, you know what? I'm going to resign from this job or this role or this position. I'm going to get a different job, which means we go looking for greener pastures, as the screen shows in front of you. So then what? Well, we're still an entrepreneur. So we find another job and we apply drive and enthusiasm, intuition, natural behavior, and spontaneity. And here we go again. So unless we are willing to train and coach and consult through that ceiling of achievement to find what? To find focus, to find strategic options, to find models, to find systems, to find accountability. Unless we find those five, unless we commit to those five, unless we become those five, we will always live right below that ceiling of achievement. And as I looked at that, I thought, well, then I better focus. I better review all my strategic options. I better plug into models. I better build systems, and I better get myself some accountability. And those five things ultimately are what we built our entire organization around, right? After that second year, interestingly enough, we net $1 million on sheer will, hard work, and powering through. So it can be done. You can be a millionaire entrepreneur. But after that second year, we built $1 million business. And that was the difference. I was $1 million entrepreneur first, and now I'm $1 million business owner second, right? And that's really what expansion is all about as well. Understand it may not feel that way because not everyone believes that is expanding, but a true expansionist should believe that they're expanding around focus, strategic options, models, systems, accountability, and they're welcoming people into their world to expand with those five things. And if you are not expanding with those five things, please stop, right? Please stop and go back and say, gosh, this is my obligation to the industry and those that I've partnered with. Now, what we realized was going to a 2-day class or reading a book just wasn't enough because it wasn't sequential. It wasn't sequential. We didn't continue the conversation week after week after week around how do we build that business? How do we move from drive to focus? How do we move from enthusiasm to strategic options? How do we move from intuition to models? How do we move from natural behavior to following a system? And how do we move from being spontaneous to being accountable? And so every week in our expansion coaching program, and really we should take out the word expansion and just say our business building program. It's called Build Your Business to Expand. But every week we have a sequential conversation around really this perspective of those five qualities we better commit to. Now, when we look back and we say, okay, well, here's my perspective, 80-20, and here's my perspective, E to P. The next four perspectives, right? 6-person perspectives. The next four perspectives will come automatically, almost naturally, but these are the two that I wanted to talk about today, and these are the two that I wanted all of us to commit to, which once we instill those in ourselves, it will allow us to really begin then sequentially building out the divisions in our business that we need to build. And that's right, going back even to that course, every week of the month, we tackle one of those divisions, right? First week of the month, operations. Second week of the month, lead generation and sales. Third week of the month, growth and attraction. And fourth week of the month, we dive down and say, okay, well, how are we going to follow the model? Success leaves clues, and we interview some top agents, and I learn from them probably more than anybody, right, through that interview process. But that first step is the operations, right? The operations division. And ultimately, if you're taking notes, if you happen to be, operations comes down to these few words, right? It's the systems that we operate within, it's the tools that we use, it's the models that we follow, it's the roles that we have in our organization, on our team, and it's the accountability that we put in place. So operationally, the division itself needs to be responsible and grow these five pillars of ops. Now, within expansion systems orientation, sequentially they say, well, there are 10 things that a phenomenal operations division will do, and the first five are in front of you. The first one is well, we better have our director of ops or our operational talent trained in career visioning, because once you have an operational team, we should never have to go back and build an operations division, right? Once we have that director of ops, they should then build and grow that team around you. So for instance, right, I started with the director of operations. Our operational team, I believe, is 13, 14 people now. Obviously, that runs a really big business, right? An individual home team doesn't need that. You might need 3 operational people, right? In Portland, when we launched that business, we built it to $1 million business with 3 ops people, right? 3 ops people. But I only ever hired the director of ops. And all other operational talent was hired by that division. So step number 1 is having a director of ops trained in career visioning. Step number 2, and this is highly critical to building a real business, is really clearly defining specialization, right? Defining what each person does. That's what Gary calls an MREA rock and roll. Like, what is your main rock, right? What's the organization's main rock, and what's your role in accomplishing that rock? So as I look at that operational division, your 135 is going to create some pretty clear rocks and some pretty clear roles as well. Now, what happens when someone leaves? Well, an operations division, right, an A-plus operations division nails number 3. And number 3 is they're focused on cross-training, right? My director of ops could pretty much do any role on the team. And that's because she is highly, highly focused on cross-training her people, cross-training herself. And that's so that the operations division is never left with you as the leader potentially of the organization jumping in trying to fix it. So making sure that ops is cross-trained. Number 4 and number 5, I love these 2 because oftentimes as real estate agents or teams or expansion organizations, we always talk about growth, right? We always talk about growth, and we talk about volume, and we talk about GCI, and we talk about units, and we talk about number 1 and number 3 and number 10 and number whatever it is, but we don't talk about profit enough. It was awesome to see at family reunions so many more conversations showed up around profit. Now, number 4 and number 5 shows the operations division owns it. The operations division should understand that budget, hold your team accountable to it. In fact, the operations division is part of the administrative cost, isn't it? And what does number 4 say? Hey, reduce your cost, right? Reduce administrative costs through the economies of scale. And number 5, cut administrative expense as a percentage of revenue. So here's what I'll share. On page 157 of MREA, we learned very clearly that our budgets are all based on percentages. It doesn't matter how big or small your business is today. Remember, it's sequential, but percentages are not. Percentages are stable, right? They are consistent. Your business will grow, but the percentages that each chart of account or each category or detailed line hits will stay the same. So cut administrative expense as a percentage of your revenue. Well, how do you do that? Well, I could reduce my own salary. I could reduce my budget for lead gen, occupancy, technology, phone, supplies, education, equipment, audit, right? All the chart of accounts. I could also drive production. And all of a sudden, our teams are having this conversation that operations drives production as much as agents do. And that's why I will always say the operations of your business is more important, more critical, more valuable than sales. Because if you truly have a phenomenal operations team, guess what? You will never struggle with finding agents that want to plug into it, because you've done what Gary said early in MREA on page 36, right? You've created a simple solution to a complex problem called ops. So number 4 and 5, I love that because it builds culture between sales and operations. Operations every day looks for ways to cut costs through economies of scale, which means as you grow, your expenses will go down in scale, right, by the percentage, and also reducing it as a percentage of revenue, which means cutting cost and increasing revenue, which is increasing sales. 6, oh boy, communication. Our organization recently read a book together. It's called The Hard Thing About Hard Things, and Keller Williams Young Professionals actually read this book together. I believe it was Tim Heil who led the book club maybe 2 years ago. And Ben Horowitz wrote the book. Phenomenal business person, launched billion-dollar businesses, right? and he said one of the biggest struggles of a scaling organization, of a growing organization, is communication. Right? It went from everybody was in one room to then 2 rooms to 3 rooms to cubicles down the hall to now we have businesses and staff in 11 different states, right? In 2 different countries. And communication becomes more complicated, and yet operations needs to own it, needs to maintain it, and needs to have systems around communication. How do agents communicate with agents? How does staff communicate with agents? What does communication with agent and client look like, right? Buyer and client, and transaction and client. And so communication is critical, and it's one of the 10 things that your ops team better just nail, right? Communication. Number 7, oh, we're going to be processing transactions more quickly. The more transactions you do, the better your systems will get. And that's why even in expansion systems orientation, right, building our business sequentially, as you begin to expand or use the word grow, you should be able to process those quicker and quicker and quicker. Number 8, I love, because people often think as you get bigger, you become transactional. And Gary shared this at Family Reunion. He said the purpose of our technology and command is what? To make sure the human touch stays in our industry. The fiduciary responsibility, which is that high level of customer focus. Guess who owns that? Ops, right? We think, oh, agent, face to face. It's the operations team that maintains that high level of customer focus. And then 9 and 10, right, monitoring new technology. Well, thank goodness we have KW behind us to do that with us and quasi for us. We need to be doing that too and looking for ways to improve our systems with technology. But number 10, you'll see every one of our divisions should do this. Save your agents time. What did I share was one of the biggest things we all want? It's more time, right? It's more time. We all want that. It doesn't matter where we are. In fact, many of us will trade money for time. Some of us want more time and more money. And we can have both as long as each divisional leader understands that they have an obligation to the agents on our teams to save them time. These 10 things allow us to really build a world-class operations division sequentially, right? So it starts with ops. Gary in MREA, and this has not changed as you look at the organizational model, your first hire, ops. Your second hire, ops. Your third hire, ops, right? The fact is you may have 3 operational hires before you ever go out and get a showing assistant or a buyer's agent or licensed leverage. And we forget that because it's so easy to just say, hey, I just need some time back, and I just all my time is eaten up showing houses. No, all your time is eaten up in the 6 to 10 p.m. hours, right? I'm speaking from experience, catching up on all your operations. You would be perfectly fine if all you did every day was the dollar productive activities. So Gary says this, hold on to your dollar productive activities as long as possible. Do not leverage out sales for as long as you possibly can, because that will drive your profitability, and your profitability will be your competitive advantage as you grow your organization. Division number 2. Division number 2 is lead generation and sales, right? Your lead gen division, your sales division, you think, well, thank goodness, because we all need some of those. We all need sales. So what does that look like? Well, first, it's really taking a step back and saying, well, we have to understand as a business owner what lead generation is. And lead generation for us in real estate is no different than lead generation in every single business. And that's why we could teach this to any business. You have so much to offer your allied resources and your lenders and your insurance agents and your inspectors and your local businesses, because all of us are in a lead generation game. Gary Keller in MREA says this, your database is your business, right? It is why he spent the last 3, 4, 5 years and many millions of dollars, right? Tens upon tens of millions of dollars on building you the best one. Your database is your business. Now, we think that's awesome. But he said, remember, it's building up the number of names in it and a relationship with those names that is going to drive that business. We can't do one or the other. We can't just have a ton of names. And honestly, unfortunately, whether we like to hear this or not, We just can't have a few deep relationships. Not in our business, not now, not in 2019. We need a lot of names and relationships. And that is why technology is our lead generation model and sales division will be forced into leveraging technology to help us maintain relationships with the number of names that we put in it. We could teach this and teach this and teach this to our teams, but this is sequential, right? Relationships don't happen overnight. The number of names in the database don't happen overnight. But every team that we are partnered with has a goal of numbers in the database. In fact, every lead generation lever, right, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, every lever that we have built out for our partners has an expectation every week of adds to the database. Why? Because we know if they follow our system that we built, we're going to develop a relationship with them, for them, even if they don't. And we know that the whole point of our business is adding names to the database. Now, Gary Keller says this in his book, the best in the industry never allow lead gen to fall prey to the ebb and flow of enthusiasm or the market. So maybe you're super enthusiastic right now about your business. Well, that's awesome. But I guarantee you, come April, May, June, maybe August, September, at some point in time this year, your enthusiasm will wane, your energy level will wane, or maybe the market will wane. And if either of those two things wane, oftentimes what happens or what falls first, the ebb and flow of your enthusiasm or the market changes your lead generation. So Gary said, go into your business and ask yourself, do you have a system such that little energy or enthusiasm is required to keep the machine running? And that's where this conversation or concept in our business has to show up. A couple years back, I had an interview with Gary at Mega Camp, and it was all around these levers that we created in our business. I talked about it at Family Reunion as well. And the only reason why we at Experience call it a lever, and now many other people call it a lever too, which I think is awesome, it's because the lever is the simplest machine known to man. Go back to this quote. Our entire business is built around the systems and models of MREA. I read this and said, okay, well, how do we eliminate the ebb and flow of enthusiasm? Well, it comes down to making it easy. I know that as an agent, I just want to sit in one side of that seesaw. I want to jump on one little lever, and I want to be able to move large amounts of weight. That is what a lever is. It's a two-part machine, the simplest machine known to mankind. It has a handle and a fulcrum. A handle and a fulcrum. That fulcrum is that point, and the handle is that long stick on top of it. And we all know, right? Think of a crowbar. If I push on a crowbar, something's moving. If I sit on a seesaw, or what do they call them? Teeter tots. If I sit on one side, the other side's going up. It's a guarantee. So go back into our business sequentially and say, hey, there are plenty of activities we can choose. FISBOs, expireds, door knocking, circle prospecting, open houses, investors, sphere, right? Local businesses, B2B, right? Those are just 8 that I rattled off, right? Farming, 9. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. Just ask yourself, have I levered out my lead gen? Have I created a system? So what does a sequential business look like? Well, here are the top 10 things that we need to make sure that our director of lead generation and sales or our lead generation division does. Well, it's led by someone that understands lead gen. And sometimes that's not you. You know, I'll be the first person to say, right now, we have been, Holly Priestner, our director of talent acquisition, has been every single day holding interviews for someone that we believe will become the best director of lead generation in the business, right? She's pulling them from tech companies, from entertainment companies, from you name it, she's talked to them. Intel, Google, right? Facebook. She is pulling people to make sure that that director of lead gen is an incredibly strong person. Number 2, we have to be able to launch those systems quickly, right? When we launch lead gen, can we get into production quickly? Every agent needs to do that. And as you expand your business or grow your business, our systems need to be able to do that. Number 3, we have to, here, I'm going to bring this back to just a local team. It says differentiate between hub and sales team lead gen duties. What this means is, what will your agents on your team do, and what will you as the business do? In our organization, we have a rule. We are partners. So that means 50% of the leads will be generated by the team. 50% of the leads will be generated by our agents. We don't want to have them be completely dependent on us. We want to build interdependency in their business. Now, right, do we set up appointments? Absolutely. Do we generate leads? Absolutely. But we think it's healthy for us to be able to coach and consult and collaborate with our agents such that they can generate leads on their own as well and build their database as well. The lead gen division will oversee branding for your organization and make sure that there's a consistent messaging, right? Messaging and branding. They're overseeing marketing and making sure, here's the deal, right? We can go and do activity all day long, but if we don't have an enhancement to that activity, remember it's prospecting based, marketing enhanced. So are you enhancing the prospecting that you're doing, or have you built a machine that will ebb and flow based on your energy around just the calls? So remember, director of lead gen and sales has to combine prospecting and marketing. Number 6, we have to be scripted, right? We have to know the conversations to move the ball, and that's going to change. Our entire organization, I'm looking at the book right now, is going through shift again. And that will be the 3rd time in the last 12 months that we have. Why? Because our scripts and conversations change based on the market. Number 7, we hold our business to conversion ratios and measure them. Every partner, every team, our entire organization, we know lead to appointment, appointment to taken, right? Listing taken to listing sold. We know open house to number of leads generated. We know those metrics. What I will suggest when you think, okay, great, well, what should those metrics be? Well, go to the 8 goal categories of MREA, right? Go to page 100 and I believe it's 107 of MREA, and it will start. What are the 8 goal categories that you should be tracking? Most of them have everything to do with lead gen and conversion. Number 8, 9, and 10 for your lead generation and sales division, maintain ownership of the database. And by ownership, I mean understand it, own it, control that, make sure that messaging is consistent. In fact, it's one of the laws of lead gen and MREA, right? 1, build a database. 2, feed it every day. 3, communicate with it in a systematic way. And then 4, service all the leads that come your way. So that director of lead gen better live those 4 laws of lead gen. Seek and receive feedback. I'll give you an example of this. Right now, first quarter 2019, the feedback that we are seeking and receiving has everything to do with our partners and engaging in activity. Hey, is there anything we can do to make this simpler for you? Because if we can remove one step and keep the results the same, we know that we will have more engagement and commitment to do it. We all like to remove steps, right? If it takes 5 steps to do something, if we could do it in 4, we're all winning. Why? Because we just bought back some time. So seek and receive feedback from your partners, from your businesses, and improve that lead gen constantly. And then look at number 10. Your lead generation division better save your expansion agent some time. Right, we do that from campaigning, we do that from setting appointments, we do that from generating online leads and phone leads, and right, we do save your partner's time, save your agent's time. Well, if you do the first 2 divisions properly and you grow, right, your first division operations and your second division, right, sales and lead gen, then your third sequential division is now we're going to focus on growth. Now we're going to focus on attracting agents to plug into the simple solutions to their complex problems that we've developed. And thus shows up the 10 practices of an A+ growth division, right? What are the 10 things that someone that is focused on growth does for you? Now, this could be your director of sales, and they're actually out there looking for agents to build your team and grow your team and move you out from producing 100% of the business on your team to 75 to 50 to 25. Last year I did about 5% of the production of my team, right? 5%. And that started, right, 10 years later. I've been running PDX Property Group for, I guess, less than that, about 8 years. But ultimately, that's what the growth division should do. a goal for that, right? What is your goal? And then give that goal to your director of growth. Now, what does that person look like? Well, they're a strong expansion director. They understand your business. They know what you're expanding. They're responsible for the value proposition of what you're offering to your agents, whether that be in your own city or a future city. They are responsible to make sure operating procedures are followed. Now, are they going to write that? Absolutely not, right? The ops team will, but the ops team is going to work very, very closely with your expansion director or your growth director or your director of sales. My director of sales in Portland meets with our director of ops a couple times a week, right? Because he's responsible for delivering solutions to his agents, our agents, and they're really building those solutions. Number three, determining where you should grow. This could be location. This could be type of business. Perhaps you're looking to get into the condo business in your own city. Perhaps you're looking to get into multifamily in your city or second home market in your city. Just determining where your growth is going to lie. If you are going to expand, you're going to work with market center leadership or your team leader or your productivity coaches or your OPs to find talent, right? Work through them, not around them, please, right? Our offices, I have 5 different offices in the state of Oregon, and we are actively looking for talent for our teams and our expansion teams, right? And by our, I mean the ones that we've partnered with from all over the country. Number 5 is an interesting one. The director of growth monitors a pre-launch checklist, right? Launching an agent is critical. It's one of the things that we do poorly as real estate agents. Why? Because most of the time we attract agents along the way because you're productive or you have good energy or people just want to be in business with you because they like you. None of those things happen for me, but the fact is if we don't launch them properly, if we don't make sure that someone's ready to engage, they understand what is expected of them, and you have systems and processes and models in place for them to launch, they will fail to launch, right? And that will reflect very poorly on a business that you believe you're creating. So director of growth is responsible for making sure that launch happens the right way. Number 6, you consult. It doesn't say coach. It's an interesting conversation. We have I don't even know how many, but we have 10 of MAPS coaches that support our organization across the country, right? Many of our partners have individual MAPS coaches, and they coach them incredibly well. The director of growth for your organization better know how to consult. Consulting is a little bit different. And right here it says consult to the business snapshot. We're going to show you that in just a minute. But ultimately, consulting is understanding their P&L, understanding their budget, understanding their business strategy. A coach is there to move them forward. A coach is there to help them grow. A coach is there to hold them accountable. But consulting isn't about accountability. Consulting is actually business advice around the 13 steps of the business snapshot, which we'll go through in a minute. Number 7, mission, vision, values, right? KW says MVVVP, mission, vision, values, beliefs, and perspectives. But even Gary has been focusing on the first 3 of late: your mission, your vision, your values. That's what we're attracting to. That's what people are joining. Sure, it's systems and it's a platform, but ultimately you're going to invite people to join you on a mission, and you're going to invite people to help clarify the vision with you, and you're going to invite people to work within the value set that you're building a business around. Number 8, there it is again, career visioning. Our organization is actually teaching career visioning internally, right? We have a certified instructor, and we teach it to our people, and then we send our people to go out and learn it from someone else as well. So, I think this year already, our organization has taken, career visioning. Probably 9 different members of our organization has been through career visioning, and it's only February. Number 9, develop a bench. You may grow, whether that's in your own town and they're working with your buyers, or you finally get that listing agent, and if you only have one when they leave, or you're not developing someone in behind them, if one person leaves, your business is at risk. Same thing if you go into another location, you spend money and energy and time and you build up a business, and this has happened to us as well. And maybe they move or they leave, or something happens even culturally where you think, wow, I can't be in business with them anymore. Then all of a sudden they leave and your business is not a business. It was a hobby more than anything, right? You transacted some homes in that city, and now your business isn't there. So the director of growth must always be looking at a bench. And then look at number 10. Director of growth saves the expansion agent time every month. I would say that theme is such a major role in the leadership team of our organization. We are constantly looking at what can we do to save our agents time? What can we do to save our agents time? What can we do to save our agents time? And sequentially, we need to build those time savers. Some of it's coaching, some of it's systems and models, right? Some of it is providing leverage. And we can say that our goal, even in our coaching program, Build Your Business to Expand, is to show people sequentially how do we put systems in place to save our people time. So we mentioned this earlier. Gary says there are 13 steps to running a business, and our obligation is one, to follow these steps sequentially. Our weekly coaching program is around all 13 of these steps. So you'll see them in front of you on your screen, and you'll notice I look at these as verticals. There's a first vertical, 1 through 4, a second vertical of your business, and this is almost a phase of your business, 5 through 8, the third vertical or phase, 9 through 12, and the fourth one, right, the last one, building your world. Now, some of us want to do all of these simultaneously, right? We are researching, we're building a pro forma, we have a business plan, we've already sketched out an org chart. In fact, we've hired to it and we have them on a 30-60-90 because we're ready to build our world. Building a business isn't simultaneous. Building a business is sequential. So the first vertical is laying the foundation. And we spend quite a bit of time in our program really building out, laying that foundation. Some people need to jack up the house that we've already built and say, gosh, I didn't lay the foundation, but we're in a house, right? We sell houses. We understand how that works. We're going to raise the house. We're going to pour that foundation. We're going to lay it. And these are the 4 steps in doing it. We're going to research our opportunity. We're going to go back and really make sure the value proposition we've created is a value proposition the industry needs, and agents need, and clients need. 3, we're going to develop our unique culture. Can't say enough about that. One of the things I'm most excited about, or I don't like to use the word proud because that doesn't fit it well, but our culture is a unique culture in our organization, and that didn't just happen. People say, oh gosh, that happened organically or naturally. No, we developed it. We developed it early on. We knew who we were, and we were going to be congruent to who we were, and we were only going to hire to that unique culture as well. Number 4, build your vision map, right? We often are used to send out Disneys, and then we got in trouble, probably got a letter from someone's legal department, Mr. Disney, saying, hey, that's copyrighted. But here's the deal. So we're not going to show you that, but Google it. You'll find it. Build your vision map. Know what that looks like today, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Without clarity, nothing else matters, right? We have to be mission based, right? But vision focused. Number 5 is the second vertical. So you went from laying the foundation to now you're planning your growth. We laid the foundation, we're planning our growth. What does that look like? 4 steps. Building the pro forma. I love that part. Some of us struggle, right? So there are pro formas for us to plug into and use and spreadsheet out within our community of Build Your Business to Expand. And these are pro formas that I use, that other expansionists use. They're there for you so you could pro forma out your model. What are you going to do? What is that going to look like? What is your profit margins going to be? 6, build a business plan. What does your plan look like? Is there a growth plan? Are you going to do that locally? Are you going to do it regionally? Are you going to do it nationally or internationally? We have all those, right, on our portal and within our community. Number 7, build an org chart, right? Build an org chart. So we talk a lot about org charts in our coaching program as well, and who those people are, what their roles are, what their 30, 60, 90 looks like. And ultimately then, once we build that org chart, we know that, gosh, Gary says, at most we need 5 key empire builders. You could do it with 3, you could do it with 4. Some of us might be able to do it with 2, depending on the size of the business and organization we're building. But identify who your 5 key empire builders may be, and that's in planning phase. We're only in phase 2. It's sequential. Phase 3 is actually growing, right? Whether it's your business at home or expanding, making your first key hire, right? 30, 60, 90ing them. What does the first 30 days look like? 60 days look like? 90 days look like? And that's okay. I know it from experience. We fall down here. We make our hire. We're excited. We say, let's get to work. And yet we don't have a clear way to say, did they win this month? Did they lose? Did they win? Did they lose? Did they win? Did they lose? And that's what prevents us from making hires as well, is because we look at it like it's a major commitment instead of a 30, 60, 90-day process to confirm that we're going to continue to grow. 11 and 12 is critical when expanding. We need to train and coach, right? We need to understand that as we build an organization, we have to run a training and coaching business. Now, the beauty is we get to plug in and actually leverage the training and coaching that KW gives us. And when we're looking at the value proposition of an organization and why to stay in an organization, I can't tell you how much we leverage Keller Williams training and coaching, right? We use that as part of the growth plan and growth curriculum of our organization. As KW Connect gets brought into command and Kelly, what you'll see is you'll be able to curate your own sort of curriculum with the help of all the top agents and KWI staff behind you to curate your own training and coaching. Does it mean you have to do all that content? No, we have incredible content from KW. Does it mean that you're coaching one-on-one with your agent? Perhaps not, right? Because we have that available to plug into, but understand if we're not training and coaching people, then they will leave. And research, I love that, because go back. What was step number 1 in laying the foundation? Researching your opportunity. Here we are in step 12. What shows up again? Research regularly, constantly learning from others. As we got to step 12, it's why the 4th week of every month we said, gosh, we better do some research for our community and for the members of our coaching group, and let's research what agents are doing the best. So right in the last few months, we've researched, or we've interviewed Seth Campbell, and we've interviewed David Hoffman, and we will actually next week we're interviewing, or next month we're interviewing Jeff Anderson, 300 million, right, in production in one city, ink spotting his way. Like, we will research those top agents and those top companies so that we can leverage that as well. And then number 13, which is the 4th vertical, creating a strategy for your focus, building your world. Right? Gary says you need to build your world, which means you need to build it. You can't run it. You need to operate on event time, not clock time, really like blocking that time and living in a role that you need to play as you grow a business sequentially. He also says building your world means leading with revenue. He says building your world means playing like you're always the underdog. We don't often see that in our industry. You'd think that everybody was the top dog and not the underdog, but right, that humility shows up in building your world. Having a shift mindset at all times while you're building. And there you see that last one, make compensation a competitive weapon, which if you run a profitable business, you'll be able to. And that allows us to really take that step and say, well, now I have a business that I can grow or expand, whether it's down the road or it's across state lines or it's a different city. Gary said this: expansion or growth in our industry is the inevitable next evolution in real estate. Right? Which means that it's constantly changing. So it looks different today than it did yesterday. This last week when Gary interviewed some expansionists, and I was able to share with Seth was there, and Ty from Fulcrum was there, and David Hoffman was there, and we were just sharing some of our thoughts around how expansion has evolved. Truly, right? It looks different. It's still built around those 13 steps, but what we do and how we do it has evolved. And what we realized was if we don't have that conversation weekly and monthly, then we'll show up to expansion systems orientation once a year or twice a year, but everything in between gets super messy. So building this sequential conversation was important. So why does it matter? Why should we build our business to expand? Why should we build it in such a way that it is expandable in the first place? Well, at a certain point in time, it's to increase profit, right? We will get to a place in any given city that we have really brought the profit potential out of that business, and we will slowly start seeing slower growth or increases in profit. That's what happened in Portland, right? We net a million, and then we net a million, and then we net a million, and then we net a million. And while that is awesome, what I realized is we were lacking exponential growth, and that took expansion in order to really increase profit. And honestly, the only reason why I needed to increase profit is because the vision for my business needed to grow. The vision needed to grow because it couldn't just be mine anymore. There were people in my world that were ridiculously talented, and I recognized that Portland wasn't going to hold them all. In fact, as I look at our organization, we have people that live out of the country. We have people that live maybe 6 months out of the country. My director of expansion, Katie Benson, she lives part-time in Portland, part-time in Egypt, right? I had to expand the vision of my business or the growth trajectory in order to attract talent that Gary said you will one day be shocked that you are attracting. And I would say 2018 for me was very much about that. The third reason to grow is to deepen the bench, right? As your business grows, you need leadership. And as your business grows, what I realized was I lost all boundaries for talent. You know, there are some people that, shockingly enough, don't want to move to Portland, the rainiest city in the country. I love it, but not everyone does, right? They don't want to leave New York like I left New York to show up to Portland. In order for me to really deepen my bench, expansion allowed me to remove all borders. And so we have staff and support and talent and leaders in, again, we've expanded into 11 states, but we have a team members in, I think, probably 14 or 15 different states. And I think that's pretty awesome around deepening our bench. Here's what I'll share. We need to start with why. Why do we care to grow? Why do we want to build our business sequentially today? If we don't know why, well, then approach won't change, ability won't change, and willingness certainly doesn't need to be there. But after that, I believe that once we understand why, then we have to be mission-driven, vision-focused, and values grounded. And I share that a lot, right? And if you're taking notes, just write those three things down. If you leave here today with that, that's awesome. But our coaching program is founded under this belief that we need to understand what our mission is. We need to clearly be able to articulate and share our vision and make sure that it becomes more and more focused. And we need to be grounded by our values. And so, for instance, in our organization, we say, hey, our mission is building experiential lives through real estate. That actually drives all of our strategy. Because if you're not selling real estate and making money, then you can't live an experiential life, unfortunately. So that drives our conversation to say, hey, our per agent productivity better be the best in the industry. Otherwise, our people won't have experiential lives. Growing the biggest business in the country, I'll illustrate, will not execute on this mission. It will make a few people very, very wealthy. But if our mission is experiential living for everybody, then everybody has to produce. I can't have a team of 20 selling 100 homes. Although they may walk across the stage, there are 19 people that didn't live an experiential life. And I'm not okay with that. We're not okay with that. So that mission-driven organization allows me to clearly see the vision, and then you'll see the values, right? Beginning with growth. Like we are growth-minded human beings, but we're growth-minded in those other 6 categories: growth in giving, growth in relationships, growth in opportunity, growth in wealth, growth in thanks, and growth in humility. And this seems ethereal, but interestingly enough, guys, that mission, vision, values has led us into those other states, right? As we look at those green states, it isn't yes, it's a systems conversation, but it is as much a mission, vision, and values conversation as well. So My hope and intention for today, right? Diana says hope is not a strategy, so that might mean that I didn't have a strategy here. But my intention for today is this: to make sure that all of us are building our business sequentially. What we realized was a class doesn't do that, right? We need to consult on a regular basis. So, KWRI and Diana and Gary reached out and said, hey, would you build out a sequential conversation such that regardless of where people are in their business, whether they're just starting, right? We need ops, we need sales, we need lead generation, we need growth, right? We need business systems, right? Whether they're just starting or whether they say, well, Chris, man, I have people in 4 different states, 5 different, like, right, cities. They need a sequential conversation around the systems and models and tools to expand within. And so every week of the year, every week, we have a 1 hour conversation live. Like, I run those calls, and the first week of the month we talk ops. The second, and we interview top directors of operations. We go through systems. We build those out in week 1 of the month. Week 2 of the month we talk lead generation, right? We build out our levers together this year, right? We implement systems in place to make sure that our lead generation doesn't fall and rise to the ebb and flow of our enthusiasm or the market. Week 3, we talk about growth, agent attraction, agent development, agent coaching. How do we attract and grow through others? How do we move production from ourselves to agents, right? And how do we attract in maybe even different cities? And then number 4, success leaves clues. Week 4, we say, okay, well, let's research regularly. Let's figure out who's doing this well, who's launching well, who's getting people into production well, who's actually just expanding well, who's producing well, who's coaching well. And we bring them on, and we do an hour deep dive into their business, specifically about what they do well. So my goal is to build this community with like-minded people that realize that they want to build a sequential business. You could go to MAPS Group Coaching or Build to Expand. .com will bring you right to that MAPS Group Coaching page. Would love for as many of us on the call today to join that community. It's $100 a month, right? $99 a month for an hour-long call. Those are live every Monday at noon Central Time. They are also recorded and uploaded. So on KW Connect, under the communities page, there's a community that says expansion, build your business, expand. And on the back end, it opens up every call we've ever had. We've had a call a week for a year now. This is our second year going into this. But it also will allow you to download all the tools and systems and models that our expansionists are using. So there's a portal of actual tools. So it's not just coaching calls, but it's actually the systems and tools used. And so that will unlock on that portal as well. So would love to have you join us. And then obviously if that time doesn't work, many do it off hours, right? So they'll listen to those calls in the evening once they're uploaded by 24 hours after that call. Questions about that? I'm not sure if Jasmine, you can see questions. Let me see if I can see them. If not, just know that you can reach out to me directly on Facebook. We also have a community on Facebook called Build Your Business Expand, where we share throughout the week what's going on, what we're working on, what we're struggling with as well. So that'll get unlocked as well. In the meantime, remember, part of the community or not, our goal is to make sure that we are building our business sequentially, that we don't get stuck or feel that, gosh, there's just too much to do. Building a big business doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen simultaneously. We have to sequentially take a breath, go back to those 13 steps, right? Some of you screenshot that. If not, we'll make sure you have the 13 steps. I believe a recording of this is going to go out to everybody that was on the call or signed up for the call after the fact. But definitely begin building your business around those 13 steps. Cool? Anything that you need, Jasmine, from me, or are we good to go?
Everything's good to go. You did a great job. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Awesome. So visit buildtoexpand.com if you want more information about the program. In the meantime, look forward to meeting many of you within that community. Thanks, guys.